Boom. There we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Zone. Looking to react to some Intel, Visa, and Levi earnings today. Super pumped for what's to come. Look, today was a great day in the stock market. The markets are up. We had some pretty good numbers as far as GDP was concerned. Economy's looking great. So, I feel like everybody's looking for a reason to, I don't know, claim there's some sort of crash or what have you. But it's just not the case right now. We'll get into that in a little bit. I do hope that Don shows up. I've texted him, asked him if he was going to show up. He said yes. He's still not here. Yep, I'm throwing him under the bus. But you know what? Everybody's always late. But nevertheless, guys, what's going on? I see you housekeeping. Fernando, Michael, what's up? Shane Haley. Yes, we talked about this yesterday. We talked about PayPal, and he said he finally got in. So Cody says Don hasn't gotten out of bed yet. Could be true. Could be true. I don't even know. I don't know what he's doing. He was awake about 2 hours ago. Says Don. But nevertheless, let's get into some stuff. So look, we have Intel that's going to be reporting earnings today. Expected earnings per share on this is, I had it pulled up. I will have it pulled up in just a second. But there's some pretty positive sentiment surrounding around Intel, which didn't used to be the case, right? I mean, even a year ago, people were pretty down on Intel, but it's come down so much that now sentiment has really kind of turned around. And so I think that there is some really good things to like about this. Expected earnings per share here at 45 cents. $15.17 billion in revenue is also expected here, which is another increase in revenue. Guidance is a bit iffy on what the guidance expectations are. But what I will say is that ASML, if you guys aren't familiar, is a provider for many semiconductors. So they came out with earnings this morning and blew the doors off of their earnings. Stock is only up around 2.5%. And let's take a look at that chart right now. And I actually, so also stay tuned, because if Don does end up showing up, I really want to address, speaking of semiconductors, I also want to address what went on with Tesla yesterday and what we found out overnight and what's going on with that stock. It is kind of crazy. So I want to make sure that he's on while I talk about that. So make sure you're staying tuned to that. But let's go ahead and take a look at ASML's chart, because it is breaking a pretty strong resistance here. It's 367.22 is where it's at right now. You can see it's at the top of this zone. It breaks over that resistance. I think there's a lot of momentum behind it for it to continue to keep going. But what a day for ASML. If you guys didn't catch those numbers, they ended up coming in pretty strong. Their sales grew by 12.5% year over year, and net profit rose to 12.7% year over year. There's a lot of good guidance here as well. Chief Executive Officer Peter Wenick said that the company is maintaining its conservative view that 2024 revenue will be similar to 2023. All signs are pointing to that's actually not the case. We'll see what happens, but this is some really good stuff for ASML. And this should carry over to stocks like AMD, like Intel, and Applied Materials, some of those other ones, NVIDIA, right? And so the thing that's the catalyst that is the loudest right now, as everybody probably knows, is AI. And I think that's also going to be something that Intel obviously talks about. But as AI continues to grow, and we know how much it's been expanding just over the last 12 months, it's going to require a lot more computing power. And that's why ASML has done really well. That's why I think Intel is going to continue to do really well too. And it's still kind of sort of on the cheap, especially compared to some of the other stuff. So taking a look at the chart here right now as we go into the close, we got about 10 minutes to go or so. But taking a look at this, it is kind of trading in between two zones right now, kind of in no man's land. We'll see what happens here after hours. But as I had mentioned before, lots of good things to expect here, based off of what I saw from ASML. Obviously, it's not always a guarantee that just because one particular stock does well means that yours will, or the one that we're watching will. But you can see it's sitting only at around 1.25% up on the day. And so kind of barely reacted to ASML's earnings. I think that I think it should do well today. I'm looking forward to this actually having a pretty strong move. If it does, watch out for this resistance here to break up over 51 and about 51 and a quarter, 51 and a quarter. So that looks like a really good spot. If it breaks up over that, sitting at 49.72 here as we go into the close, if it breaks over that 51 and a quarter, I think the momentum is going to continue to carry this thing. It has just been an amazing stock from this triple bottom that we saw back in November of 22. It's been nothing but good things for Intel all last year. I think that's going to carry on into this year. You can see, look at this. Even if it breaks up over that 51 and a quarter, next spot is going to be at the top of that zone, around 52.33. But man, it breaking over these two resistances is going to be huge for the stock. So really excited to kind of see where this goes as of today. And we'll see what those earnings look like. Moving on, we also have Visa that reports today too. The stock's also been absolutely insane. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Sounds like Don just popped in here. There he is, Mr. Reliable. What's up, man?
I'm already seeing the comments. Don is an eccentric fellow. Don is not putting his heart into this. I am. Promise. What's that?
They thought you were sleeping.
I was this morning. So my chat knows that just because I thought it was Friday. And Fridays, I take it so easy. Like I just don't. I sleep to the bell purposely so I don't make any pre-market moves. And it goes into, I mean, there's a whole reason why. One, in the beginning, I looked at my losses and I used to have like a counter and I would just mark red or green. And that's it. Just red or green. And then looking back, you would just see multiple red Fridays and things just felt like they traded differently anyway. So I was like, nah, I'm just not going to do it. So I purposely sleep to the bell on Friday. The past couple days, not going to lie, hit the snooze button. and then I wake up and see, NVIDIA still leading the market. Nothing's changed, but
that's a really long explanation to tell everyone why you were late.
Yeah. Well, if they're having issues, that's some things they need to look at. How often do you there's a whole reason why I do it.
No, I'm just teasing. Shane, thanks for the donate, man. It says Lamar Jackson's the only man that can prevent Taylor Swift Super Bowl. Go Ravens. Also, go Lions in the NFC. Thanks for the $5 donation. Yeah, for sure. That'll be a great matchup. If you want to find out more about that, make sure you're coming over to the Ryan Ripken show too. I know that I think Shane, you're subscribed to that. So, but anyways, super pumped about that. And I know that Don's you're gonna be watching the game this weekend. You gotta be.
What game?
Oh my God! You live in Kansas City. You always talk shit about it, and you probably can name 2 players on the entire team.
No, what are you talking about?
What do you mean? What am I talking about?
Talking about the Chiefs? Easy. There's Pacheco. He's a guy, right? And then there's
I don't know. You're asking me for confirmation, or
yeah, I just want to make sure we're doing good. There's obviously Kelsey and Mahomes because no one over here shuts up. Taylor Swift, I think, is actually a football player.
Taylor Swift might be a player. Yeah, she might count as a player. Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I'm drawing a blank. I used to know quite a few of them, but only when I had the what's the imaginary game everybody plays? Fantasy football. Yeah, because I had a few of I tried to get the Chiefs players, and that's why I hate Kelsey because he got like I don't know how many touchdowns and ran 8 yards.
Yeah,
like my guy would get it all the way to the end, the 1 yard mark, and then Kelsey he would just touch the ball, and all of a sudden he's just a hero. I hate Kelsey just for that.
Yeah, welcome to fantasy football in general. Nevertheless, look, it's gonna be a great game this weekend. Certainly looking forward to that. Lord Fender says football. Is that the one with the wood stick? Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm super pumped about that. You guys want to? I do have a second channel around sports. Me and my boy Ryan, a bunch of other guys are getting together. We're gonna be talking about that all week. So make sure you come check us out over at the Ryan Ripken Show. But we're here to talk about stocks. Listen, Don, I haven't talked
about.
Your
name is Ryan Ripken today.
Oh, that is why my name's Ryan Ripken today. Yeah, I didn't change it in the.
Before we get into anything, because Lord Fender sent me a screenshot. He says, "Is this you? He doesn't really have your cadence." Now he sent me a screenshot of the fake me. There's a few of them right now going around on Facebook, TikTok, and Discord. And no, that is not me. But I will say the fake me. he's throwing screenshots around. Looks like he makes 60 to 90K a day. You might take him up on his offer because he's a much better trader than I am. I don't know where your Bitcoin would go, but you might hit him up and see how he does.
Yeah. So I saved this conversation for you, Don,
Mhm.
because I didn't want to get into it without you. But
Mhm.
Tesla obviously having a shitty day. We
Is that
talked about it.
180?
It's at 182.84. Getting down to close to 180. Well, actually, I think it bounced right off of 180, it looks like, which is the bottom of that zone. But if you guys didn't catch some of the news, Elon came out and had lots of not great things to say about Tesla and the future of Tesla as far as earnings are concerned. Talked about a pretty slow, or I guess warned about slow growth in the EV market, specifically with Tesla, and really kind of gassed up China sales, specifically with BYD. This is something that I've talked about for years at this point. You guys know that Warren Buffett went into BYD, only made about 800% off of that, probably more than that at this point, but it has obviously done extremely well, and they're selling a ton. He made comments about that Chinese car companies are the most competitive and will have significant success outside of China as well. And then he also kind of like hinted at that it would depend on what kind of tariffs or trade barriers are established. I'm not quite sure if that was like some sort of political statement, and he's just kind of like saying, "Hey guys, like China's going to take over on car sales or what?" But he also said if there are no trade barriers established, they'll pretty much demolish other car companies in the world, and then cites also that they're extremely good. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Don. Obviously, we'll talk about the charts in a little bit, but like just on the comments that Elon made, and then also for me personally, it's like Elon probably could do better on those sales if he finally starts to just, I don't know, get a design company that knows how to design vehicles, or at least understand how people work, right? You're not going to buy a Model S and then go buy another Model S 10 years later that looks exactly the same as the Model S you bought a decade earlier. And I think that there's got to be some sort of marketing that needs to happen for Tesla if they're actually going to compete with some of these other EVs that are coming for them.
I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword. Now, Elon likes the minimalist idea, but yeah, you're right. 10 years down the road, you like that car, but sometimes Americans, we just like buttons. We like to fiddle with things. We
Like
just
new
like
shit.
big, yeah. And so like it's kind of silly where I think Volkswagen's going because they're talking about making 30 models. Like
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
point, it's a little bit too much. But yeah, there could be, even if it was I think it would help if there was something as simple as the Corvette, for instance. There's the Z06 model, and it looks completely different. Like the Plaid, I should not have to look at the back bumper and see if it's a Plaid.
right.
Like you should just know that that's a different model. I think even just taking what they have and just applying a different bumper could probably spruce things up quite a bit on that end.
Yeah, yeah, I
But
agree. And when we talked about it last night too, that they're bringing down the excuse me, the price of these vehicles, which is also cutting into the gross margins, and so it's a tough time to really kind of get behind Tesla and be as all gung ho on it as perhaps maybe some of you guys were in the past, because of just things just seem to be slowing down. And Don and I talked about this a little bit last night, that he was considering taking some of the I guess quote unquote startups, as Elon likes to quote them, out of Tesla and kind of have them as their own entities, which kind of freaked out a lot of investors. And then you have last night's earnings call, basically kind of doom and gloom coming from Elon. But now we're looking at the stock and looking at the chart here, Don. Pretty decent bounce off of that 180 mark. What do you make of this?
I drew this out a couple weeks ago, and I think you remember these.
Yeah.
But for everyone that's not here, this is what I had. Now, this is actually someone who uses my charts. If you are a YouTube member, you can get the chart link and you'll have all my zones. Somebody even said, what strategy do y'all use to day trade? Pay attention. I don't mean that in like a contest anyway. But these yellow boxes. I always forget to turn that off when I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I actually drew these blue candles out saying that would be the bottom. I am going to buy some. Hopefully it is the bottom. But I also, I don't. I talked about this a little bit last year that this actually was 2022. I said 2023 Tesla would start to be boring. The whole ramp up thing is starting to settle down. Like we know Tesla makes cars. There's not so much of a surprising factor there anymore.
Right.
But you said it's a tough time to be in Tesla. I think it's a tough time to be in automotive. BYD just looks good because we're talking about an EV revolution, and BYD is counting all of their hybrids in there as well. So it's a little bit of a not it's a little bit of an apple to oranges scenario. So not
Yeah, but
really
if it's enough,
fair
if it's
there.
enough, if it's enough for Elon to, I guess, raise concern about it on an earnings call, don't you think that we should pay attention to it?
Say that again.
If it's enough for Elon to bring up on an earnings call, don't you think it's enough to pay attention to it? Like, are you disagreeing with Elon on that sentiment, or no?
Uh, Elon, he's very opinionated. He reminds me a lot of Trump, where he tries to put the feelers out and try to move pieces.
Yeah.
But sometimes the public doesn't always take it the way he wants, and he ends up doing a lot of backtracking. And not to say that this is the case, but he's mentioned it multiple times that he has PTSD from like 2008 when he was literally carrying the company,
Right.
keeping it from going bankrupt.
Right.
So I think he is playing it ultra safe. If anything, sandbagging for right now, which might not be a bad play on his part because we know the Tesla cult can get emotional sometimes. And if there's anything down the pipeline that
Oh yeah.
that could stir things up anymore, like he would probably want to just temper that. It's a lot easier to surprise to the upside when your expectations are we might not do much versus the other way around. If he needs to sell Tesla shares to fund his next startup or his next Twitter, then he might need to sandbag and ultimately play the slow game to surprising at an earnings later.
Yeah.
I think he's right to be cautious. There's a lot of writing on the wall. I don't think I personally do think we're in trouble right now.
We don't have to get in too broad with it, but he was just talking about China sales in particular, and we can revisit that conversation in just a minute. I don't mean to interrupt you, but Intel did come out with earnings and pretty interesting reaction here to it so far. It was down as much as around 7%, and now is bouncing currently. They came out with earnings, Q4 adjusted earnings per share, 63 cents. Gross margins were at 45.7. Q4 revenue came in at 15.4 billion versus estimate of around 15.1. And Q4 net income came in 2.7 billion. The estimate on Intel was at 45. So it looks like they beat all the way around on those preliminary numbers. Obviously, guidance is going to play a factor here. Could be why the stock's moving down. Don't have those guidance numbers just yet. I will in a moment. But Don, initial reactions here.
I'm glad I slept in. I really wanted to go long Intel.
I did too. I actually talked about that before you showed up. I was like, ASML had a really great quarter. Talked about some pretty decent guidance here. And I thought that would trickle over to some of the other semis. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's the case here for Intel this afternoon.
Yeah. Right now, I'm trying to see if we need to. Try to see if I want to make a play on it, but
it's looking like guidance numbers came in kind of light, but I'm trying to confirm that.
Looks like guidance was 13 cents estimated, and 13 cents per share, but estimated was 34 cents
for the current quarter.
I guess. Yeah, I'm just reading what Dom says in the chat. I don't have Twitter or anything pulled up. We went right to the expected. So we were pricing in a big move, and that's what kind of had me excited because Intel usually only prices in a couple dollars. And Intel's expected move for the week was $3.74, and we're usually at the $1.50 range.
Here's the
quarter.
Here's the guidance here. They forecasted first quarter, so the current quarter that we're in for 2024, revenue of 12.2 billion versus 12.2 to 13.2. Lots of twos in there, and then versus the 14.16 that was expected. So about $1 billion below what the expectations were for guidance. First quarter EPS attributable to Intel of loss of 25 cents. And so then compared to 13 to 20, 32. Net sales by category, client computing, 8.8 billion. That's 33% increase year over year, which is great. But data center and AI was 4 billion. That's actually a decrease in by 10% year over year. So that is interesting. Data center and AI it came in lower uh, this quarter than it did a year ago, which I find interesting on that. Network and Edge, 1.5 billion. That's also a 24% decrease. So it looks like the big winner here is client computing, which is up 33%. Also, their Intel Foundry Services, that's up 63%, 291 million. But obviously, the big one's going to be that client computing. That's their cash cow. It's just kind of surprising that data center and AI was down so much.
That seems. I don't want to. I don't want to argue it because I clearly it's not. So that seems off.
Yeah,
And what has me stuck on why I want to take plays, and this is something we went over in the private streams the other day, is it used to be every company was we're using NVIDIA chips to power our AI. We're using NVIDIA chips for this, and now they've changed their verbiage to we need this much processing power. We need and they've said NVIDIA or NVIDIA's equivalent in processing power.
Yeah.
And that's where because NVIDIA right now the greatest of all time, right? And I don't think anyone's arguing that, or maybe Lord Finner might. But as far as the companies are concerned, NVIDIA you just can't touch it. Right now, NVIDIA can't touch the demand. I mean, they're out there just scratching the surface.
Yep.
And companies are saying this is such an epic race to get AGI that right now they just need processing power, whether it's name brand or the great value brand, which is essentially, AMD and Intel.
Yeah.
So I do think there's some. And I hate and I know you say it, but I hate when people say stocks are they play the catch up game. Like they got some catching up to do.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, I hate when people say about like oil. There's a lot of like fundamentally different things about companies, but in this case, I do think AMD and Intel might start to fill some of that void in general, and then they could see some pretty decent numbers. Going forward in that space.
Yeah. And I mean, look, Intel's trading at 51, almost 52 times next year's earnings. We take a look at something like NVIDIA, and it's trading at same around the same as far as forward earnings are concerned. So,
really? I would have thought that was way higher.
No, NVIDIA is at 50, and actually Intel's a little bit more expensive than that. So, maybe it got a little bit ahead of itself, but I don't know. I still think this seems like a pretty decent value. We come back out here on the daily and spread this out or go back a little bit. The top of this zone is kind of where I'm looking at, Don. If it tries to break up over that, I think Intel actually has a lot more momentum behind it.
Yeah, that will be a tough one to break.
Yeah. But if it does, I think that we could see some pretty decent movement out of that. Wanted to address a couple of comments here. Shane Haley says, Miss Fatman Zoom and his epic rants. Can you imagine the legendary rant after Tesla shit the bed on one of his favorite stocks? Yeah. Christian probably would have lost his shit yesterday and it continued to go on to it today. But yeah, for sure. This is always a great question to answer too. And I get one of these almost once a week during earnings week. Why is Intel selling off if they beat? And it rarely has anything to do with the current quarter the quarter that they're reporting on, I should say. It really comes down to what they're guiding for the current quarter that we are actually in. So right now we're in the first quarter. You might have heard me talking about what expectations were for the first quarter, and that Intel is expecting to come in $1 billion less than what the street was expecting. And so that's actually the most influential part of this. And that's why, lots of times we'll see stocks move off of, even if they don't beat, or if they don't beat and it goes up, maybe it's because they're guiding better than the quarter that they were reporting on. So, and that's also why it's so hard to trade earnings, because you can always expect that a stock's going to do well on the quarter that they're reporting on, because you can kind of see the writing on the wall. It's actually almost a little bit easier to determine if they're going to beat earnings or not for the quarter that they're reporting on. What's really hard to determine is what's going on right now. And so if they come in and say, hey, this is what's happening right now, and it kind of surprises everybody, this is when you kind of see these types of reactions. And honestly, the initial reaction was an overreaction. It's still down around 6%. I think there's some room for this to bounce back, but we'll see.
I don't think I'd be worried about a bounce back. Well, I guess as a trader, that's a dangerous statement. What would be the time frame on it?
Yeah.
I do think by the end of the year, Intel, AMD, and Nvidia are all going to be higher than where they are now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree for sure. I just think the semi space is still going to go bananas. And again, we've talked about this yesterday, and we'll continue to talk about it. But it has everything to do with artificial intelligence and the demand for it. So I wouldn't worry about this too much if you're, excuse me, if you're trying to trade this. And today, I would say right now it doesn't look like it's in a good spot to go one way or the other with this. I'd
Yeah,
probably just
I would have
hold on.
rather caught the knife. I think right now it would have been better just to have, had a pair and just caught the knife on the zone. At that point, you're already green and kind of managing a green trade. Right now, you kind of let the dust settle.
Yeah.
And kind of see where we're going.
Yeah, for sure. Checking in, there's other earnings today too. Visa reported earnings as well. Not too much reaction to the stock here, but they did come in at 241, beating expectations by 7 cents. Revenue came in at 8.6 billion. That's 9% better than this time last year. They beat that expectation by 50 million, and looks like their guidance kind of just came in line. Could be why the stock hasn't moved all that much, but payment volumes, they're right in line with what expectations were. They declared a quarterly cash dividend of 52 cents a share. Revenue growth that they're expecting for the entire year of 2024 came in the low double digits. So not really like that crazy. But listen, I mean, the GDP numbers came in today and they were actually pretty good. If you're looking for some crazy move, Visa is not your stock. But if you're looking for something that's just going to be steady as she goes, lots of people kind of speculating, oh, well, credit limits are as high as they've ever been, yada, yada. But people are getting paid more than they ever have. And we're seeing that in those GDP numbers. I think that you're fine with Visa in the long term. And even for 2024, I think you're fine. I don't know about this as a stock I would go start trading on as far as like a day trade scenario is concerned. But what are your thoughts on this? This actually looks kind of interesting sitting in here the last couple of days, just kind of living in this zone between 270 and 272 where it closed today.
Yeah, I don't. Fundamentally, I kind of want to short this, but there's the real world, then there's the stock world, which is why I don't. But I'm kind of in the boat of I wonder how many people stop making their Visa payments. I think as we venture, and honestly, if I wish, if any of the tech guys were here talking about AI, I'm curious what kind of disruption happens in Visa in general. Because if you get to the new status of permanently unemployed, and we know how fast Congress is as far as handing out money.
Yeah.
I think things like Visa and MasterCard are going to be on the totem pole. They do not rank very high. If it comes in terms of I got to pay my house or eat, I'll sacrifice my credit score to do that. Here's Mike. He says banks are going to fail due to AI. And I think the credit cards are going to be the heads up to that.
I think if that's going to happen, I don't know how close we are to something like that taking place.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking for 2024. I don't think anything's going to take place there. I think from what we saw from a macro perspective, the economy is doing really well. Consumers are doing well, and we didn't get this doom and gloom recession that everybody was kind of calling for. And so now I think it's more or less for 2024. I think it's going to be an up year. I don't think we see anything like we saw last year as far as like performance goes on the S&P 500. Tech could still probably, of course, continue to go bananas, but Visa is probably also going to get into the AI space. Don't ask me how that's going to be applicable to them, but I don't think anybody's going to just not get involved. And I would be interesting to see how they do it and how they'll leverage AI. But nevertheless, the overall economy is doing quite well, and the consumer is doing quite well. Everybody's got jobs. I just don't see how Visa takes any sort of horrible crash this year unless it's something unforeseen.
Yeah, I had a couple of jokes. Ford's new patent. If you quit paying your bill, the car drives itself back to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
factory. Does
that's some
Visa
bullshit.
does the card grow some legs and walk out of your wallet? Like, like, do they come take the? I'd make sure I only buy food,
Right.
in case they come raid the fridge.
Can't take that
But
back. Right.
JK does have a good point. He says, considering Visa doesn't own the debt, they just do the processing. He doesn't think the eat, live versus repay your debt is a huge deal. And that is a good point. And I'm trying to just give my thoughts overall as a whole on this, because you say even for 2024, this is kind of like Uber. Like, I don't touch Uber. It's just one of my stocks that I just don't care to, because why would I hail an Uber when we do have cars that can drive themselves? And I think what I don't want to be in is those tickers the day we find that out. That kind of sounds like it's just going to fail overnight. I just think personally, for me, there's a million other things I'd rather trade. Visa, if I were to have Visa, I think it would only be for the dividend factor, because it kind of has some solid growth. And when that day comes, you can always make the decision to get out. But for me, my only interest right now would be to accumulate shares and maybe collect a dividend.
I'm trying to understand the comparison to Uber, because Visa is highly profitable and Uber still can't make any money. But
Well, just for the credit card debt, I see Mike and I like to argue. He thinks within 5 years, it was 5 to 7. I'm getting him down to the 5-year mark. The more we talk, but the way my mind just gets blown. Like, I'll get sidetracked anytime somebody starts to bring up AI and what that could mean. Just because the way we're just entering into that S curve. But I don't think it's gonna be. I think it just goes vertical, and I think it's gonna be an absolute crap show. And so I don't want to be in anything that's going to be in that way, because I don't like, how would Visa use AI to do anything? It's part of a traditional banking system, and I think it's flirting with things.
I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I will say. We got to figure out how to not talk about AI's doomsday every day of the week.
That's I don't think it's a doomsday. I think we.
I know, but like that's what this entire week has been, this theme so far.
You should
every
see
time we talk about a tech
channel.
stock, and then it well, we're not on your channel. We're trying to get people to make some money. So.
Yeah, but I mean, zoom out. If this each ticker has its place in time, and squeeze them together. Let's get the bird's eye view.
Yeah.
If you want your money to look like that doesn't look bad. Like I said, dividend ticker. I don't know if it's one I would trade. It's not the biggest mover. If you're after volatility, movement, Visa just doesn't meet a lot of the criteria, I guess. It has volume. It's definitely tradable. But I think there's better. This sucks because it's not a bad ticker. But I think there's just better ones to trade.
Yeah, I think for me right now, like if I'm looking at this as a potential investment, I would say that it's a bit expensive. It's trading at 27 times next year's earnings. So I think that unless something really blows my world or rocks my world on Visa, I probably would avoid it, just because it is a bit expensive. And I think it does need to make some sort of retreat. Whatever's going to cause that to happen, I don't know. But I just don't know if I would touch it all the way up here for that reason. But it's still, like Don said, still a good ticker, still a good company. If you have a long-term view, I think you'll be fine. But I think for the short term, even for the next 6 months, I just don't know where it goes from here. So I saw somebody asking, like, why is Visa not going anywhere? I think that's just it. It's super expensive. It didn't didn't knock anybody's socks off as far as earnings are concerned. Just kind of came in line on everything. And so I think that's why it's just not really moving. And actually a little bit red here after hours.
Yeah. To combine a couple comments, we got Gengar Phantom talking about Visa is a monster. You buy shares, let them sit in your long-term portfolio, period. And that kind of, I'm going to bring up JK's comment. He says, just want to hear you point out that American Express, on the other hand, owns the debt, therefore more valued like a bank. Yes. If you're getting into that sector in general, Visa is probably the one you want. I do like Discover as well, but yeah, to wrap everything up, kind of like he just said, that's just one you do buy and hold, and if you want to get one, that is the one to buy and hold. And even if the AI thing, like I said, if that happens, you know, um, if it continues as it's been, your stop should probably already be in the green. At that point, you're just managing some growth with a dividend.
Yeah.
You know, uh, that's kind of everything I guess on that one.
Black
They're
Beauty
just a
Machine.
giant, is what I'm saying.
Black Beauty Machine asked me to chill.
He
I'm
wants
like,
to hear the AI stuff. Yeah,
well, every day we can't hear it every day. We gotta, we
every day.
gotta, we gotta, we gotta
Okay,
bring.
you know what really drives that though? The fact that people don't listen, it just like makes me want to talk about it even more. Like I want to shake some people sometimes. Like
Yeah.
it makes me seem like I'm losing my mind. I need some kind of reassurance that I'm not crazy, you know? So that's why.
It's interesting. It's interesting, and I think that this could be a live stream within of itself.
Mhm.
Obviously, and I just don't want to turn. What my point is, Black Beauty Machine. So I just don't want it to. I don't want every stream to turn into it. So I
Mhm.
do think that like we could designate time to talking about it in general because we've heard from Elon talking about AI and how it could be really really great or it can be really really terrible. And
Yeah.
so there's so many things that we can talk about as far as that's concerned. But you clicked on this video, it's probably because you wanted to know about earnings today.
Yeah. And right now we are simulcasting on Don Franz show and the old Own the Chaos. We're slowly merging it.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons is I am making AI videos on my channel. So I do have these conversations if you are curious. And I do want to, it's not just me. I want to have people in the tech space interviews and then just kind of get that. And that's why, Brad, I want to have you on
Yeah.
without any precursor to what we're going to talk about, just so we have a fresh mind as to, we're going to throw some things at you, see what you think, kind of thing. Because
Yeah,
it's
that's fine.
easy as a tech nerd to see what's coming, and then like there's just it seems so black and white. So yeah, we'll keep it stocked. But if you see Brad cutting me off, that is why, because I will rant. I'll take a hard right, and next thing you know, we'll be talking about bunkers.
That's almost with everything though, Don. I gotta rein you in every once in a while. We get off topic quite a bit, but nevertheless, and I'm guilty of it too. Everybody is. But there was something else I wanted to address. I thought somebody asked. Oh yeah. It says you see everyday companies laying off people like Levi releasing earnings and laying off 10 to 15% workforce. Michael Anthony says makes a comment about it. And yes, that is true. So Levi came in with earnings. It came in at 44 cents, in line with the consensus estimate around 43. And they achieved $1.6 billion, reflecting a 3% increase in reported basis. And look, yeah, Levi laid off some people. But again, this isn't, I want to kind of reiterate that not everybody's laying off people. And we just saw that in the recent jobs report that was actually really good. And we also saw today the GDP numbers came out. The GDP grew over 3%. Also great numbers considering that everybody thought that we were going to see this crazy hard landing and that the sky was falling and everything else. You know, I would venture to say that companies like Levi, and we saw Amazon do this, we saw Facebook do this, got way ahead of themselves during the pandemic, and now they're trying to cut costs because they swung the pendulum way too far in one direction, and so now they're trying to bring it back down. And actually, I would say that they're bringing it back down at a pretty decent rate. They're not going the other way like we're used to seeing, and why everybody thought we were going to see some sort of recession because we thought the pendulum was going to swing too far in the other direction. Right now, we're not seeing that, and so I think that there's. I know that there's always some sort of cause for concern, but I always like to try to take the approach of like, well, let's just think about this logically. I know it's crazy to think about, but that's the way that I go.
I will say the Feds have done a much better, because I was one of the people that thinks, here we go. And I thought if we're going to crash, or I didn't think we are going to crash. I did think correction this first quarter.
Yeah.
The Feds I think are doing a much better job than I thought they would, because they tend to just wait too long, too late, too long, and then it does just full send the other way, and it's like just letting go of a spring. It just goes back and forth a little bit, and then eventually settles down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right now we're seeing all-time highs on the S&P 500, which is awesome. So
yeah, I did talk. Not to say I called it out. I not to be like that, but what I was on the lookout for was you get the all-time highs headlines and then kind of sell it off. But we've had the all-time highs headlines, and then it does just keep coming. So if that sell doesn't happen,
and then this happens.
yeah, I know. Like if that sell doesn't happen soon, again, it's an election year, so I do think they fluff the market later this year. Don't be moving that. You better control Z right now.
Yeah, I am. I didn't mean to do that.
These are my charts. This is how I trade. This is my livelihood. Brad's got his own color. He's got a light pink line.
I know. So I mean, yeah, I would say if anything, we would see some sort of consolidation this year, but I still think we end the year green. Lots of reason. We can talk about that as well on a later show. But I gotta roll. Gotta get ready for the Ryan Ripken show. If you guys haven't checked that out, you just search Ryan Ripken on YouTube. If you're interested in talking about sports, we got a big week in football. We're gonna be talking about that too. So I saw a couple people making comments about it. So
the Chiefs play the Ravens. Is that what's going on?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think they're gonna lose by? A little bit or a lot?
They're not losing this week. Ain't happening.
Oh, listen, guys. How many times I gotta say it? Chiefs are obviously gonna win. I don't know what to tell you. I'm surprised the little purple team made it this far. Your little birds, they did good this year.
Why? They were the best. They're the best team this year.
I don't get ahead of yourself. I think they're okay, but
the record. I mean, they are what they are. It's the number.
Yeah, you got to pay. I get it. You got to pay people off. The NFL's rigged. Isn't that what they say?
You don't watch enough football to know that.
I did watch the last game, like the last 9 minutes of it. the Chiefs and the Bills. Oh man, and I'm glad that got kicks like my buddy Goff's, because like just missing that, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
It will be an interesting game. I honestly thought the Ravens did suck. I was genuinely surprised when I saw how good they were. I was like, oh, that'll be a good game.
Yeah. And it's first time it's been in Baltimore, so should be a good game. Right.
That will be. Somebody did ask if I'm going live later. Today's Thursday, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll be live later. We'll talk just the markets in general. That's just what I normally do. So you'll see me live on this channel. Should be Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Then anytime I hop in here with Brad, but that'll be at 6 p.m. Central. And then you guys got the disclaimer already. We can ADD it up because I'll jump in the chat and probably start answering questions. So the YouTube thumbnail and title might be about the market, and then all of a sudden we just go on a specific ticker. I will at least cover the futures for sure.
Lots of people commenting on my shirt today. It's a Deep Eddy shirt. Sponsor of the other channel. We're hoping so anyway. But got this one given to me. I love this shirt. It's like one of my favorite shirts I own. So you'll probably see more of this. But anyways, guys, have a great day. We'll see you. I'll see you Monday. You'll see Don later this evening. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Go Ravens, and we'll see you next week.
Ravens suck.